Okay. All right. Hi there. Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Nelson, and I'm with the New Mexico Economic Development Department. And we are really happy that you're tuning in. Whether you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube, or you're watching this afterward, but you have caught us in our webinar or our series, our interview series, called the Rural Efficient Business Program. And basically, this program is where we are wanting to talk to businesses all over the state in rural areas and discuss energy efficiency and what that means for their businesses and their business models, discuss implementation of renewable energy systems and if that has made sense, and hopefully learn from their challenges and learn from their successes to help other businesses in the state look at these models and see if it makes sense to them. Especially we've seen as our businesses, and especially in our rural areas, are dealing with the negative impacts from COVID-19, our businesses are looking for any and every help everywhere they can, and trying to find money where they can. So energy efficiency is one of those ways that we have seen, can offer some extra cash. So I am joined today by my great partners and colleagues and friends, Jalal Rostigary from NMSU and the engineering department, and Jennifer Sensabaugh with MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So one more plug I'm going to put in before we begin about our program is this program is in collaboration with the USDA and their Rural Energy Assistance Program. So we received a grant about a year ago to engage in this interview series. So we're really appreciative to them for their support and their partnership. So Jalal and Jennifer, do you guys want to briefly introduce yourselves before we bring on our guest?
Sure. Thank you, Joanna, for the introduction. And I'm from the College of Engineering, New Mexico State University. And the college has a few programs, outreach programs. One of them is business assistance. And we have a couple of grants, one from EPA and the other one from the EDA, that we are able to help businesses to be more efficient on their energy use, and also help them with the environmental issues. So those are two programs that I'm going to talk about them later.
Thank you. So glad to be here with Joanna and Jalal and all of you out there today discussing these important topics. I'm Jennifer Sensabaugh. I'm the CEO with New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We are a nonprofit organization that works with manufacturing companies and small businesses throughout the state of New Mexico. And a little bit later, we'll get into some details about how maybe we might be able to be a resource for your company as well.
Great, thank you. And just to shed some light on kind of how this interview series has been operating, we started this in the summer, I think, of last year. And we have interviewed a few companies around the state. And this is, I think, is our third or fourth interview, and we'll continue those throughout the year. And without further ado, I want to introduce Juliana Ciano. We were going over how to pronounce her last name. So there's Juliana. She is with Reunity Resources, and we're really excited to have her here and hear more about your business and your operation. You guys have some really exciting stuff going on. So Juliana, do you want to start by just giving us a background about your business and what you do, where you're located, just giving us the lowdown?
Absolutely. Yeah, really happy to be here with you all today. And I'm getting a kick out of how we all have J names. Realize we're Jalal, Jennifer, Johanna, and Juliana. So good luck with the tongue twister, everybody. But yeah, and I've been working with Reunity Resources, which is coming up on its 10-year anniversary, which is kind of amazing. Like I feel old when I start measuring things in decades. Oh yeah, we've been doing that for a while. Reunity Resources is a project that my husband and I founded 10 years ago, starting really with this idea of renewable energy. That's the center of this podcast here. And the first project we took on was collecting used cooking oil for recycling into biodiesel. So there's an incredible program at the Santa Fe Community College all about sustainable technologies and biodiesel. And my husband had taken classes there and eventually was then teaching classes there. And that kind of interest and motivation in how to create circular systems rather than linear economies was really the seed of the idea. And since he was in that biodiesel program and also doing some work with local restaurants, starting with the used cooking oil seemed like a natural experiment. And so we began with that, and all of the trials and errors of new businesses and entrepreneurs, and over time looked at how can we take this idea of taking a waste stream and turning it into something that's value. And that's where the name comes from. Reunity comes from the word reunite, that instead of throwing this away to that like mythical away location where it is maybe causing, real environmental problems downstream, how do we repurpose it into something that actually has value and in our own community? So our next step on that was food waste. Turning food waste into compost is a very clear circular loop. That's something that for most people, the US averages are that 40% of a household's trash can is actually compostable. So that is a huge, huge impact in terms of taking that waste stream. And then of course, here in the desert, our soil is really desertified, right? It's sand, it's clay, it's mostly inert, it's lacking in organic matter. So that finished compost from the food waste is a huge value for yourself as a grower, a gardener, for a lawn of any kind. And then the environmental benefits of that compost in the soil, we'll talk about later in the program. But so that was kind of our second program. So we started with biodiesel, then we moved into compost after a couple of years. And now just 2 years ago, we started operating a small regenerative farm. And we're located in Agua Fria Village in what has historically been a traditional agricultural community. And even there's archaeological evidence of traditional farming as early as 5,000 BC. So indigenous peoples were settled here. This is Tewa land, and using the river, the Santa Fe River, which of course then flowed in a different pattern than it does these days, to irrigate their fields with flood irrigation. So we're really honored to be stewarding this land and connecting those pieces so that the compost, the food waste we're collecting from schools and restaurants is turning into compost for the farm itself, as well as then to sell that compost out into the community.
Great, thank you so much. In terms of what you sell, how your operation is making revenue, you mentioned compost, and you all are selling. Do you sell your produce year round?
Not year round. It's extending a little bit every year, but right now we're at about 9 months out of maybe only 8, April through November. With obviously high harvest season being kind of July through October. So those are 2 main revenue streams. Something that's bizarre is that the used cooking oil is actually a revenue stream as well. And it's bizarre because it's so disgusting. It's like the least glamorous thing that we do is collect. Not that food waste is much more glamorous, but it's like used cooking oil. It is gnarly. It smells bad. It ruins your clothes. It ruins the truck. It's got some funk, but it actually is on the commodities index, just like gold or propane.
Uh-huh.
It is a commodity that can be traded. And when we first started, we were trying to make our own fuel and filter it in these big filter socks in our garage and, do little projects at the community college. And as we started to scale, we realized that the barriers, if you're making it yourself, are much like if you're a great cook and you cook your own brownies. That's great. You can give them to all your friends, but you can't sell them because you're not in a commercial kitchen. So with fuel, it's even more complex than being in a commercial kitchen. It has to go through these really strict national certifications and road taxes if you're going to be able to resell that biodiesel. So we quickly realized that our best strategy was to actually collect that oil, sell it at its commodity price, like a few cents a pound, to there's only one processor actually in New Mexico. They're called Rio Valley Biofuels, and they're down in Anthony, which is near Las Cruces. And so we would collect it in tanks and drive it down to Anthony, and they would buy the cooking oil at the commodity price, and then we could buy back in a different container whatever amount of finished, certified, taxed biodiesel to then resell and redistribute up here. So that piece of the used cooking oil is another revenue stream that kind of carries on to this day. And what's, if we're talking about business efficiency, that used cooking oil is a lot more efficient than farming, for example. The level of human labor, that growing food in the desert takes is really high. Whereas we've got before the pandemic, of course, our numbers were higher, but close to 100 restaurants that we were collecting used cooking oil from. They just need a barrel out back. And we need a truck and a staff member who can go around every week to 6 weeks, depending on how much oil that restaurant is using, and collect it. So that's one piece of it.
That's so fascinating. And I love the history in terms of you've been operating, you and your husband have had this idea from 10 years ago, and here you are, over a decade of experience. And it's so amazing as a business owner to watch from the beginning idea, and then you are learning about what works, what doesn't work, how can we produce different streams and be more efficient. So really eager to hear more about the story. So we'll jump right in. As mentioned, this is an interview to really explore kind of what has worked for you all, and how you recognized why energy efficiency was important, or why this kind of closed loop model was important for you all. So we're going to do kind of a tag team of asking you some questions, and I think Jalal is up and kind of get into the details of your business practices.
Yeah, this is great, Juliana. This is what you do is amazing because, I've been working with renewable for many years, and before I used to work with algae. So this is really great work, and so I'm glad that you are doing such a great job. Couple of questions. Have you looked at any other renewables, or only you are looking at the oil and making biodiesels? Do you look at
That's
any other renewables?
a good question. We've got a couple of other kind of small scale renewable energy projects. Most of our work is outdoors. So in terms of like utilities audits and various things, we use a lot less than some types of businesses might if they were a big production facility or something. We're mostly outdoors. And we're able to use biodiesel we have diesel trucks and machinery, so we can incorporate that. A couple of the smaller things we've done as we've grown onto the farm is when we make compost, we use an aerated static pile system, which we can, somebody email me if you want to hear all the details about that. That's a different story. But the point here is that heat is a byproduct of the composting process. We call it cooking. So all of this food waste and wood waste gets to a minimum of 130 to 160 degrees just through our aeration process and the microbial activity. So that heat can either just be released or it can be captured and used for something. We built a greenhouse 7 years ago now, thanks to a grant from PNM that can capture the heat from those compost piles and put it into the soil. It's basically like a radiant floor heat system. So before we covered the greenhouse, we dug down with a tractor and put all of this PEX tubing, zigging and zagging in the soil about 18 inches down. And then we run that same tubing through a fresh new hot compost pile and pump water back and forth. So it's radiant soil heat from the compost pile that's outside. And that, obviously we're heating the soil and not the air. So that greenhouse that's not your like tropical banana tree greenhouse. It still gets cool in there in the winter, but the soil itself stays above freezing. So cold loving vegetables like carrots, beets, lettuces can be grown in there year round. And then another kind of micro example of that is that we started a project collaborating with several other organizations growing food on county land that's adjacent to our location. And that land had no utilities. Obviously, if we're going to grow food, we need an irrigation system in New Mexico. And so we brought in a water tank and filled it with potable water and hooked up a small, it's like 36 inches by 48 inches. It's a pretty small solar panel that then runs the pump that pumps the water through the drip irrigation onto the plants that we're growing. So that's just another way that we've tried to find simple and renewable solutions to improve our operations. We're similarly researching, and if anybody listening knows the answer to this, you should definitely email me, but we'd like to set up a community fridge, which is kind of like one of those free little libraries, except it's food. So a huge part of our farm's mission is making sure that food is accessible and that fresh, healthy food is accessible to everyone, whether or not they have the time and the money to go to a separate market or seek it out. And so we'd like to install a community fridge and pantry on the edge of our property near the road. There's also no utilities down there. So right now we're scratching our heads wondering if we can run a refrigerator off of a small solar panel like that, and hoping we can figure that one out too.
Great. So
Juliana and Jalal, I'm going to interrupt really quickly. What is your email, Juliana?
Good question. Yep. It's my first name, so Juliana @ and then the business name, reunityresources.com. Thank you.
Okay. One more, actually, this is more comments than questions. NMSU grant, we have a project that we are working on greenhouses that you can work year round and it's very efficient. So that's the one that, I can give you the information for the person to be in touch. And, those are energy efficient greenhouses that, our main branch in Las Cruces with Grant branch, they are working together and they are coming up with this idea that these greenhouses are, you can use them year round and they are very efficient. So that's something to consider.
Fabulous. Thank you.
So, Jennifer, go Tim, if you have some questions.
Sure. Thank you so much. This is so innovative, refreshing, and creative stimulus here on a Friday afternoon, Juliana. All that you guys have done just feels so good and so right. And so I have no doubt that the audience out there hopefully will help you overcome some of those challenges that you just talked about. And as far as tell us a little bit about your business operations as far as efficiency goes within those. You mentioned trucks driving around and employees, and I'm assuming harvest at that point in time as well. And so how are you all handling those?
That's a good question. We've structured kind of our growth and our operations. We've structured really, our growth was sequential. Like, we didn't start out with somebody giving us $1 bajillion to like buy a farm and a bunch of equipment. It was like, hey, Rob, can we borrow your truck? Hey, can we borrow your pump? Hey, I've got $400 in my savings account from teaching. Like, let's buy a trailer. Like, these are like steps that we made. And we got like the oil collection to be able to pay for itself, and pay back the debts. And then to, instead of like us volunteering our time, to be able to pay somebody to collect the oil. And then once we could see, okay, now we've reached sustainability, what would happen if we had 10 more restaurants? Where in the chart do the numbers start to go like this, where we say, okay, now our costs are staying down here, but our revenues are increasing. And then how do we take that increase and put it into the next program? And so that's how we've grown. And to a certain degree, then we run each program as if it's its own business. So we're looking at biodiesel production and used cooking oil and saying, are the costs of this being covered by the revenues from this? The same with collecting food waste. Are the costs of collecting this food waste being covered? And the restaurants and schools are paying a collection fee. So we're looking at that collection piece as one category. And then producing the compost, that requires, staff, heavy equipment, time, space, all of that, and selling it. Are those costs covering that operation? Then for the farm, same, we're looking at, can we sell enough vegetables to cover our labor costs? The one thing that we don't kind of match up exactly like that is our food donations and our education work, because we think those are mostly tied to the farm. And if anybody on here is a farmer, it's like the hardest business in the world. It's really hard to make money as a farmer. Thank you, farmers everywhere. And we just think it's really unfair to like put the economic pressure of like, well, we want to give away 10,000 pounds of food for free, and we want to be able to host 5,000 school kids on field trips over the course of the year. It's unfair to put the economic burden on like carrot sales to cover those costs. And so that's where we're either trying to fundraise or trying to increase efficiency in other operations. So for example, last year, there was like the COVID crisis gardening explosion that happened, which I think is one of the great silver linings of the pandemic, is that everybody's like, let's grow our own food. So our compost sales went up, and that then could keep us afloat in other areas that went down, because of course suddenly schools weren't asking for their food waste to be collected, and restaurant, everything was on pause in certain parts. So I think having that diversity has been really essential to staying afloat and kind of piecing them out like that, so that we can really see where are our efficiencies or inefficiencies. So the farm, for example, has, there's a farm manager who's amazing, and she has a crew of a couple of full-time and one part-time seasonal staff that are coming on kind of sequentially now as we get busier and busier, and they take care of the planting, the greenhouse work, the harvesting, the prep, the donating, everything. And we just try to find that balance where everybody feels empowered to do what their piece of the puzzle is, and then that we're holding this bigger container of support and connection to let people shine doing their jobs, but to not micromanage each specific program.
That sounds fabulous. And I love what you said about diversity. I think, you can't speak for every small business in New Mexico, and it doesn't always work, but we did see those glimmers shining throughout the pandemic. And New Mexico small businesses, I think, do a really, really good job of being diverse, partly because we have to be because of our size, and so that is great to hear, and I'm glad that did work out in your favor during these hard times that we had to go through.
Absolutely.
As you look forward, you spoke a little bit about the community refrigerator. That sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. What's kind of your next 2 or 3 big kind of goals to move forward in your vision? Is it scaling up? Is it adding a new service? What does that look like?
That's a good question. One, it's like it's both of those. One thing that we also added in the pandemic, as we were losing our food waste streams from schools and restaurants, is we added in a doorstep collection service. And so that's now been going for almost a year and increasing, but we're wanting to continue scaling that up, is the household residential food waste collection program, and scaling up our composting in general. We're hopeful that as restaurants and schools come back online and we're able to be together and eat together again, that our food waste volumes will go up. And pre-pandemic, we were almost hitting our space threshold. So our scale up steps would be we're looking at some adjacent land so that we could increase that commercial production aspect of the compost. We're looking at diversifying our products. For a long time, we really just sold this is the compost we made, and do you want it screened to the size of compost or screened to the size of mulch? And partly because of all of the demand of the past year and the lack of food scraps, we're saying, gosh, we're going to have a higher demand than we have supply. So let's make sure that we're bringing in, for example, a cow manure compost product from a production site in West Texas for resale. And with our existing compost, we're making more like potting soil blends, so that it's this is your container mix, and are you a houseplant person? This is great for succulents. Or are you looking at your fruit trees? This is your arborist blend. So that we're kind of just geeking out on the different soil structure qualities and offerings we can make. And so I think, scaling, if we looked at 3 years, I think it's hard to tell when the sort of pandemic recovery will really happen. But if we said what's going to happen in 3 years, I'd like to see our doorstep compost program triple in size. I'd like to see us extend our compost production onto a different piece of land and grow, which would then free up another space where we'd like to see a community building on the farm and more growing space. So right now we have a lot of people on the farm, kids, adults, grandparents, but it's seasonal and it's weather specific. And so what we'd like to see ultimately is a community gathering space for workshops and classes. And that within that, something we've talked a lot about in terms of our northern New Mexican food system is that shared infrastructure with other farms is lacking. So we kind of dream about a facility that would have it's called GAP certified. GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practices wash station. That would be kind of, you could imagine the stainless steel sinks and the floor drains and everything that's super sterilizable and sanitary, that we could then share as a hub for other small and beginning farmers. So they could have their land, or even, be farming nomadically, farming on somebody else's land, and maybe not have that infrastructure, but then can come bring their vegetables, wash them, put them in the shared refrigerator, and then bring them to market, or even build capacity in our county so that food is being used in county senior centers, and kind of really building that food system linkage to support local farmers in a more efficient way is a big goal.
That sounds amazing. And based on what you've said and how you've grown so far, I assume that energy conservation and efficiency would be part of those growth plans as you're adding physical buildings.
Yep, exactly. That's, like, how can we do this with solar and LEDs, or is there a wind capture? What are really, I think there's so many interesting, really efficient architectural options out there, so that if a building comes into place, that's definitely a goal to make that a demonstration in itself too.
Well, thank you so much. That this is, like I said, so refreshing and exciting to hear. Let's see, Joanna, I think I'm coming back towards you.
Okay. Something that you said, Juliana, made me think of, we had referenced that your business has been in operation for about 10 years, and kind of the trajectory that as a business owner you go and you change and pivot and innovate. When you all started the business, was your mission to be a sustainable, energy efficient, mission-driven operation, or were those choices motivated more by, as you mentioned, saving money here so you could, on the carrot production, so you could do community outreach? Can you shed some light into kind of, as you started out, how and why you have kind of switched toward these practices?
Yes, and I think I got your whole question, but the audio cut out a little bit. So if I start talking about something and you're like, that's not the question, please interrupt me.
Okay, all right.
What I think I understood was, how did we determine when and how we could expand into more community education and outreach in terms of business efficiency? Is that correct?
Yes, and more so by, what was your motivation for being energy efficient and sustainable? Was it mission driven, or was it to save money, or both? And I think that it's insightful to kind of talk about your experience there.
Absolutely. I think for me personally, it was mission driven. And I have two kids, they're 6 and 8. And last night, when they were just about asleep, right? This is always when the best questions come up. Like, just about asleep. And my 8-year-old said, "Mom, how many years will it be before the earth is no longer the earth? Because, we have a lot of pollution right now, and we just, like, there went our early bedtime." But I think that concerns about our planet and climate change have been a huge driving force my whole life. And what makes me, like, right now, I would say it's my kids that motivate me. But what kind of further motivates me and really, like, upsets me to a certain degree is that when I was 8, my 3rd grade teacher was talking to my class about the dire state that the earth was in, and that we needed to change our practices and change our businesses and change our governments, and that this has really been the kind of guiding issue of our generation. And I find it really distressing that the exact same narrative is happening 30 years later. And so I personally just feel this, like, well, we have to do whatever we can. And we can't do it all, right? But whatever kind of small piece we can do in a personal, personal scale or business scale, that's a huge driving force. And I think it is true, you mentioned, like, economic efficiency. We have found that kind of doing the right thing. And, like I could throw my food waste in the trash, or I could throw it in the compost. Really, like for me as a person, the action isn't that different, right? It's just like, well, I need 2 bins. I need a green bin and a black or whatever. And for me as a business, like the difference in terms of like effort and like mind power and energy and is kind of 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. So if I can put out the same effort, but have the result be a really sustainable, renewable practice, I'm always going to choose that, and, is renewable energy always free? No, like there's, solar panels cost something, and everything has a cost. But I think if you look at the life cycle, full cost accounting, that we have found that the renewable choices are always cost neutral or beneficial.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm so glad you brought up cost accounting, one of my favorite subjects. Okay, and I think your audio or video might be a little bit delayed. So I don't know if there's other stuff running. Maybe that would help the connection a bit. But
what I think it is that it just turned on to 1 o'clock, which means my kids signed back onto their classes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So now there's probably three video calls happening.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're so appreciative of your time. And we've got a few more questions. We'll wrap it up here. Jalal, I think we're on to you. I think you're on mute.
Yes, you are doing such a great job. I'm just sitting here listening. I'm amazed that you are doing a great job. Working in New Mexico, do you have any obstacles, any problem working in New Mexico, or how do you see businesses are doing in New Mexico?
That's a great question. I wish it rained more here. Does that count? No, but we've been very grateful. The state environment department, the support from a lot of different levels.
We're losing you.
There is just a conscientiousness in New Mexico where people are prioritizing renewable practices, and I'm really grateful for that. We're grateful to be here. We wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Great.
Okay. Do you have any piece of advice for the businesses that are participating now? What do you advise them? What's the best advice that you can give them?
Oh, that's a good question.
Since you've been in business for 10 years, I think, sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, I think my son was just asked to give advice to a historical figure that he was researching, and his advice was brush your teeth. I think that's valid advice. But I think in terms of business, I think for us, everything, at least for me, everything happened on a much slower time scale than I would have wished. I think I can come up with a thought and a hope and say, oh yes, and like, let's put that into place. And then I kind of want instant results. And that the results are not instant, I think, is the 10-year learning. But that if you don't give up, and if you keep kind of pivoting and keep asking and keep poking, the results do come. So for example, when we were starting our food waste compost collection, there were some bureaucratic hurdles to get through. Not only how do you figure out how to do this, but then what are the ways businesses have to deal with licenses and permits and zoning, and it can feel like a lot and it can take some time. But I think if you believe in what you're doing with your business, stick with it, keep asking questions, and keep showing up. It'll take longer than you think and cost more money than you think at the beginning. But eventually, the results will come and the momentum will build.
Okay, that's from me. Jennifer, do you have some more questions?
I guess, let's see. So what other support can resources like us out there provide, that would make things easier?
Great question. In 2018, we were able to participate in the JTIP program, which ultimately allowed us to hire like a compost operations manager and build capacity in a really meaningful way. Whereas we wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. So I think that's a really great program. And I think I feel like the biggest growth hurdles are around like infrastructure improvements and staffing, where you kind of arrive at this plateau where it's like, well, I can make more money if I do more work, but I can't do the more work or do it differently until I buy a piece of equipment or hire another person. And so types of bridge loans and various ways of kind of supporting that, like, okay, like we believe in your business, we know you need to add like this piece of machinery, or you need to add this staff person so that you can develop this program, which will have the XYZ for a return. And I think those types of resources and connections are just super helpful.
That's really helpful to us too. Thank you for that insight. Joanna.
Right. And I think I want to be conscious of everyone's time. We're close to wrapping it up. And I want to encourage anyone, if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. We got a comment from Henry saying, this is a great conversation. So, Juliana, is there anything that you want to close with? Is there anything that you feel like would be relevant as companies and organizations and businesses are facing these extreme, economic impacts with the pandemic and with environmental concerns, especially as we're coming into the summer and not a lot of water, as you mentioned? Anything you want to close with, or insight you'd like to provide on you all's from you all's perspective? Because you gave some great advice earlier, but if there's anything that you want to hone in on, feel free.
Yeah, I think trying to be really gentle with yourself and gentle with your business. I think anybody who is in a small business has had a really rough year. And whether it was rough because they were exploding with busyness, because or because they had to close and open, or they just had to close, there's lots of ways that it has been tough on people. And I think that feeling when you start a business, that it's like an extension of yourself, and if you're worried that that it's failing or it's not working, to just be really gentle. And that we've been, obviously, nobody needs to hear the phrase unprecedented times once more, but that we've been navigating a lot in our world, especially in the last year. And so the more kind of gentle and flexible that you can be with progress or pivots or whatever it might be, the better, because we're navigating uncharted territory for sure.
Great. Yeah, that's great advice. And it sounds like you all just, I think I've worked, and I think all of us on the call have worked with hundreds of businesses and seen so many stories and seen so many different scenarios. And one of the things that's really obvious that I think about success in a business is just having tenacity and like you said, just sticking with it and trying different things and continually figuring out how to improve. And so you guys definitely have that going on. You have so much going on. It's just amazing. It's really great. I think we all have a lot to learn from your operation. So really excited to connect with you, and thank you so much for your time. We have a lot of information about your organization on our website, and so we put up your email. We'll continue to stay in touch and encourage anyone to reach out to us or to Reunity Resources, especially if you have a lead on a community refrigerator. That sounds like a great idea.
Right, if you know how to run a refrigerator off of a solar panel.
Awesome.
But yeah, please, anybody, just please get in touch if you want to know how to compost in the backyard of your business, or if you have any, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love connecting.
Wonderful.
I'm thinking, I won't put words in their mouths, but I'm thinking that the labs might be able to help with a solar panel fridge connection.
Have you connected with them, Juliana, on their NMSBA? Have you guys done that?
Yes, and their Reunity Resources is a 501c3 nonprofit, and their NMSBA is for for-profit businesses. But we have an adjacent LLC that we're developing a couple of products with, and they were able to do some very detailed soil analyses to help us out with that, which was very, very exciting.
Okay. Okay. Well, then this quest continues. Hopefully we can help connect something.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Juliana. Thanks for all the work you're doing in the community.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Juliana.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thanks for having me here today. Take good care.
You too.
Okay, and now I show that we've got about 15 minutes left in our hour, our extended lunch hour. So we're going to take a few minutes to share some insight from our partner organizations, MEP, NMSU, and EDD, and hopefully pique your interest, share some light on some resources that are out there if you are interested in these topics of energy efficiency, sustainability, and renewable energy systems. So I'm going to go ahead and share a brief slideshow with you all. And let me keep this going. And I think, Jalal, you're first up. And if we can keep it to about 10 minutes, I think we'll be good. And want to encourage everyone, again, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the comments box. And Jalal and Jennifer, if you just tell me when to advance the slides, I'll get that going. Take it away.
Okay, so I don't see the slides. Maybe it's delayed. Do you see the slides?
I see them.
Yeah, somehow I don't see them.
Okay, well, you want to just take a few minutes, and as you talk, I'll kind of go through your slides.
Okay. Well, I just know the slides so I can talk about them. Somehow I don't see them, but that's fine. First slide is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me for any question you might have, or if you need any assistance. That's my first slide. Okay, and this next one, please. Now I see them. Okay, that's the slide is. I mentioned that we have funding from EPA, and that's mainly for pollution prevention, but pollution prevention is a broad subject. It covers energy, it covers all kinds of waste, hazardous waste, chemicals, everything. So that's the grant that we have, and we look at everything. And the idea is to reduce, eliminate, or prevent pollution at its source, so you don't have to deal with them. And that's the main thing, how to deal with the waste. It can be energy waste, it can be chemicals, it can be any kinds of waste, so you don't uh, impact the environment negatively, and how we can do the savings. So the first thing is to reduce, and don't have it at the first. Then if you have it, reuse it, like what Juliana is doing. Somebody's waste can be some other people's treasure. If you have some waste that can be reused or can be sold. We had many businesses that they had some waste that they didn't know what to do with it, but we found the right person and send it to them, and business made some money, and the one who bought it had a good source of income for both of them. So those are the last thing is recycling. That we want to recycle as much as we can. If we are not able to reuse it or reduce it, then recycling is the next option. And the last thing is disposing the material. So that's something that at the last, and we want to minimize that. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a program that we work closely with MEP, and Jennifer is our partner, and that's called Energy, Environment, and Economy, and also called Lean and Green. So what Jennifer is doing, her team, we work together. We work on the making it, energy conservation is that at the bottom. We come to the businesses, we go and look at all their operation. We look to see how is their lighting, how is their building construction. We look at everything, and where they can conserve energy. Energy efficiency is totally different than energy conservation, and that's because turning your lights off is energy conservation. But if you are using LEDs, those are getting the same benefit, and still you are having energy efficiency. And we look at their building, look at their operation, look at everything, and we see if they are fit to go for solar energy or other source of renewable energy. So those are the recommendations that we come up with, and talk to the businesses and see how they can implement those recommendations. Next, please. So, there are main businesses that we are working with, but for the grant that we have for EPA at this time, we are looking for breweries and wineries. So we need to do 2 of them for March. So if you know any businesses that are breweries and wineries and need assistance, we'll be happy to do it. That doesn't mean that we cannot help the other businesses. We have other source of funding that we can help them as well. So those are the sectors that we work with, and we'll be happy to help any businesses in New Mexico, anywhere in New Mexico. Now we are doing it remotely. We have come up with a plan, and we can do it easily remotely, and it's really been a lot of fun doing it remotely as well. Next, please. So we, from 2015 to 2019, our program has helped businesses to save about $9 million, about 6,000 pounds of hazardous waste, and also about 65 million gallons of water, and 6.81 metric tons of the emissions reduced from the environment. So, and about 19 million kilowatts per hours of electricity was saved. So as you can see here, gradually we increased everything because we got more funding. We added staff, and 2019 was the peak of it, because we had, some businesses that they were able to save a lot, and in 2020 we were not as much in doing helping businesses because of the pandemic, but we are hoping that now we are ready to go do it remotely, and that's something that we are looking forward to do this work and help businesses in New Mexico. Please feel free to call me, contact me, and hopefully we can help you with our programs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jalal. And I wanted to mention that when folks registered for this session, they noted if they were interested in receiving an energy efficiency assessment. And so that list will be passed on to Jalal and his team. So stay tuned. All right, Jennifer.
Hello, thank you everyone for joining on this great conversation today. As previously mentioned, I'm with New Mexico MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Here's our contact info. Feel free to reach out for anything. Next slide. So New Mexico MEP's main mission in general is to grow New Mexico manufacturing. And we do this through several different avenues, but we have a team of manufacturing and engineering experts that are available to assist our manufacturers to overcome barriers to growth, any barriers to growth. So we talked a lot today about efficiency. MEP focuses on process efficiency. How do we help you make your product better, faster, stronger, cheaper, whatever it is that is standing in the way of your growth. And these are some of the ways that we can work one-on-one with your company to do that. Next slide. We also use our platform to expand awareness. So we want to create awareness of the New Mexico manufacturing community. And, we hear all the time, wow, I didn't know that was made in New Mexico, or I didn't know we did that in New Mexico. And so one of the ways that we focus on this effort is that October is deemed New Mexico's Manufacturing Month. And so this year, because of the pandemic, we did virtual tours of manufacturers and submitted, and we had folks submit videos. And so those videos are available on our website if you want to take a tour of some of the manufacturers that are out there. And we'll keep a list of upcoming events as October draws more near at our website, newmexicomep.org. But anything we can do to bring awareness to manufacturing, what's made here, and how we can help move those companies forward in their growth plans, we are here to support. Next slide. We are part of a national MEP network. So there is an MEP in every state in some way, shape, or form. And we are loosely connected through the Department of Commerce. And the value that brings to New Mexico is that if we don't have the ability to solve your problem here within our experts in New Mexico, then we can reach out to our sister centers in other states and maybe have tap into their expertise to help solve manufacturing issues that might occur. Next slide. Oh, next slide. And so I'll close up and turn over to Joanna. I know we're running short on time, but I think that, the other thing that MEP really looks to do is to partner with great organizations such as we had here today. New Mexico, I will say, has a ton of resources for small businesses and manufacturing companies alike. Sometimes I think the hard part might be finding those to fit your specific need. The folks on this phone call, the folks at New Mexico EDD, our staff, I know Jalal and his team are more than welcome to and happy to help you navigate those waters and hopefully find a solution to help you. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Joanna.
Thanks, Jennifer. So as mentioned, I'm with the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and we have the ability within our perspective to assist businesses, as Jennifer mentioned, and really play connector to a lot of resources. So always want to encourage businesses or organizations out there that if there are questions, if they are around starting a business, expanding a business, they can always connect with our department, and we can either provide direct assistance or point them to other resources. So always really eager and excited to connect with businesses and figure out how we can help. So through Rural Efficient Business Program, we did start this website that you can see on the bottom of your screen, NewMexicoRuralBiz.com. And this is a place where we're really trying to highlight these stories and these interviews that we have engaged with and will continue to do so for the next year or so, to share stories and learn from each other about energy efficiency, about renewable energy, so we can create a more robust ecosystem and understand and bring awareness to the resources that are out there to build stronger businesses. So we get involved at EDD with financial assistance, and that usually comes from connecting to other organizations that provide financial assistance, or connecting with some of the programs that we have that can assist financially. And Juliana had mentioned that they use the JCHIP, the Job Training Incentive Program. That's an example of one of EDD's programs. But really quickly, I wanted to throw up some ways that you can finance a renewable energy system, or even energy efficiency plans, the expansion, buying that refrigerator that you need, or buying that solar panel. So wanted to put these up here. First and foremost, the USDA does have a program through their REAP. I mentioned it earlier, the Rural Energy Assistance Program. And through this program, you can actually get a combination of a grant and a loan to pay for renewable energy systems. And when I say that, obviously meaning a solar panel or utilizing some other type of energy source, like even geothermal or wind turbine, for example. SBA is always worth mentioning, the Small Business Administration. They have various loan programs that are available to businesses, and they're wonderful partners of ours and available to talk. They, in fact, currently with the pandemic going on, have some really attractive programs that are available for businesses, very low interest rate, covering the first few months of payments. So it's really a good time to connect with them and see if they could be a fit. Microfinancing sometimes can be a good answer too, especially if you're just starting up and you don't necessarily have that the assets built up or the experience. So our big time partners in this arena, we've listed here: Dream Spring, West, Lift Fund, Loan Fund. I didn't put on here RCAC, but they're a good fit in this space as well. But these are great organizations that are CDFIs, that they can do really small loans. They can do larger projects, but really get in that space of assisting startup businesses. Also wanted to mention provider financing. Sometimes this is a good fit too, reaching out directly to the solar panel company. Sometimes that can be a fit, as well as the utility company. We've got some great utility partners around the state that have incentive programs available for businesses that are looking into renewable energy or saving money by being efficient. Also, wanted to plug our collateral assistance program. This is a program that enables us to provide collateral on those commercial loans that have a deficiency or they have a shortfall. Especially now with uncertain economic market, a lot of our lenders are really looking to minimize their risk because we don't know what will happen in a few months. So maybe if a business is looking to finance a solar panel or some type of refrigeration efficiency, maybe a bank is going to be hesitant to lend 100% of the value on that purchase. So what we can do is we can come in and purchase a CD put cash in the bank to fulfill that gap in collateral. So let's say that a business is wanting to purchase a refrigerator for $100,000. The bank is only willing to recognize 75%. So we can actually put cash, $25,000 in the bank to limit the risk of the bank. So it could be a really good tool as you're exploring these topics that we've discussed today. And then also, finally, we have a program called LEDA, Local Economic Development Act. And this is a grant program that can be used for purchasing land, building, or infrastructure. So infrastructure obviously encompasses some type of energy efficiency or energy producing system. So if you have questions about any of these, reach out and we will get you the information that you need. Some actions that you can take to stay up to date with EDD is firstly is signing up for our weekly wrap up. This is a newsletter that we have been putting out since March of last year when the COVID pandemic hit. And this is where we are doing a national survey. We're doing a state survey of what financial opportunities are out there for businesses. And we're looking at grants, at any type of program that could help businesses. So if you're not getting these, please sign up for those. We're putting out millions of dollars in opportunities every week. So, and in fact, I just saw in my email that the one for this week just went out. So that could be a great way to stay connected to what's going on and what opportunities are out there. Also, finance fairs. This is something that we've been doing over the last 2 years. This is where we're going to specific regions of the state and basically giving a platform for all the lenders, all the financial programs that are available in the region. And we're putting them in one place and inviting the public to participate and learn from them of what opportunities are out there in their region. So we just were in the southwest region of the state, and now we'll be moving to the southeast region, and that'll probably happen the beginning of May. And so if you have any interest in that, reach out. Also, I mentioned that we can be a really good connector because we've got a lot of really great partnerships with the local economic development organizations around the state, as well as your Council of Governments. These are all great partners that are getting opportunities and news and access to the programs that could assist you with your project. So make sure you're connecting with them. And then lastly, connecting with your EDD regional reps. We have representatives for our department located in 6 different regions of our state, and they are great well springs of information and connections. So if you don't know your regional rep, you can go to this link and figure out the contact and how to meet up with them. And safely and virtually, of course. And here's my contact information. Here's our webpage. Here's the page for our program, YouTube, Facebook, and our Twitter handle. So we'll send this out and make sure you get this information to your email. And I think Jalal fell off there, but once again, I see we're a little bit over time. Want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Juliana and Reunity Resources. Really exciting to hear about all the work that they're doing. And thank you, Jennifer. Thanks to all the work MEP is doing in this space. Thanks to Jalal. And I want to give a really quick plug. Our next interview will be at the end of March, and we're going to be interviewing, let's see if I get this right, Red Willow Farms and Middle Age Spread. So these are 2 different organizations up in the northern part of the state. One of them is a farm, and the other one is, I'm going to try to remember this, I think doing cheese production from goats. So it'll be really exciting to hear what they got going on. Anything you want to close out with, Jennifer?
No, I just thank you. As always, this was fun and engaging, and encourage anybody out there to reach out.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks to all. And we will see you soon. Bye. Take care.